In the early hours of September 25, 2016, the baseball world was struck with terrible news. Jose Fernandez, the Marlins' ace starting pitcher and one of the brightest young stars in the game, tragically passed away in a boating accident. Obviously, this had a huge impact on the sport and the Marlins franchise. The Marlins game that day was canceled. The next day, all the players wore his number in a game which they would win 7-3 over the New York Mets, which included this iconic and emotional home run by D. Gordon. Fernandez was a good pitcher, I think everyone knows that, but I think a lot of people forget or don't know just how good he actually was. After crunching some numbers, reliving his career, Fernandez wasn't just a good or great pitcher, he was on pace to be one of the best of all time, and that's not even an exaggeration. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see his entire career pan out, but the numbers at the beginning of his career suggest that he was a legend in the making. By the way, only 4% of you watching this video are subscribed, so if you enjoy the video at any point, I would appreciate it if you subscribe. It's completely free, and you can always unsubscribe at any time. One of the most impressive feats of Fernandez's career was the age at which he dominated. He was only 20 years old when he made his debut in April of 2013. His career consisted of 4 seasons, ranging from the ages 20 to 24. If we look at this graph that compares ERA and FIP of pitchers under 24 since 2000, we can get a good idea just how dominant Fernandez was for his age. ERA measures pure run prevention, while FIP measures more of the underlying numbers. It takes into account strikeouts, walks, and home runs. Fernandez is great in both categories as he's the lowest point in both stats. There are 133 other dots here, meaning 133 other pitchers that started at least 50 games before turning 24, and none of them were as good as Jose, at least in terms of these stats. If we look at the FIP leaders from this group, we can see Fernandez is amongst some pretty good company. Spencer Strider, Noah Syndergaard, Steven Strasburg, Garrett Cole, Roy Oswalt, Clayton Kershaw, Tim Lincecum, Walker Buehler, Chris Sale, Mark Pryor, the list goes on. Looking at the ERA leaderboard, you'll see some similar names. Fernandez is on top in both of these lists. Zooming in on his rookie season when he was 20 years old, we see even more impressive numbers. 2.19 ERA, 2.73 FIP, a 176 ERA+, a Rookie of the Year award winner, and a third-place finish in Cy Young voting. He was worth 6.2 BWAR and 4.2 FWAR. There's been a lot of talk lately that the season that Paul Skeens just had was the best we've seen from a rookie pitcher, but Fernandez brings a tough challenge. Skeens definitely was more productive on a per-inning basis, but Fernandez pitched 40 more innings than Skeens. There's no obvious winner here, and it isn't really that big of a deal who had a better season. I've just not seen many people bring up Fernandez's rookie season in this conversation where they say Skeens just had the best rookie season of all time. This supports the statement that people have forgotten just how good Jose Fernandez was. But now we need to go deeper. There are some other things holding back his legacy that we need to analyze. Not only was Fernandez's career cut short due to tragedy, he also struggled with injuries during his short career. He only pitched 8 games in his sophomore season in 2014. He was diagnosed with a torn UCL, which required him to undergo Tommy John surgery on May 16th of that year. He would miss the rest of the 2014 season and the bulk of the 2015 season recovering from the surgery. He pitched in just 11 games in 2015. Essentially, we only got to see 2 full seasons in Jose's career. All in all, in his 4-year career, he would pitch just 471 innings, an average of only 117 innings per year. This makes his overall numbers look a lot worse than other pitchers since he never really got the chance to rack up the counting numbers. On a per-inning basis, though, he's one of the best pitchers in recent history at his age, and we don't just have to say this, as it's pretty obvious when you look at the numbers. Fernandez's name is not going to come up when you look at the WAR leaderboards, even if you only include players under 24 since 2000. At least, he won't show up amongst the top pitchers. That's why we need to take into account how many innings the pitcher actually pitched. Accumulating WAR with fewer innings than others with more innings is impressive, which is what we have in the case of Jose Fernandez. This graph right here is the first step into realizing what Fernandez's career was really about. Here are all the pitchers under 24 who started at least 50 games since 2000, the same sample we were working with before. The BWAR is on the vertical axis, and the amount of innings that they pitched is on the horizontal axis. If we draw a line through the middle of this, we can get an idea of how much WAR a pitcher was expected to get based on how many innings that they pitched. You want a pitcher to be farther above the line. That means they were better than they were expected to be based on how many innings that they pitched. If a pitcher is below the line, that means they were worse than they were expected to be. One way that we can look at this simply is to take WAR per innings pitched instead of just WAR. When we do that, here are the top 10 pitchers in this sample. Jose finds himself in 6th, ahead of names like John Lester, Clayton Kershaw, and Tim Lincecum. Chris Sale had a great start to his career as he averaged .03 WAR per inning pitched before he turned 24. You also have some surprising entries on this list like Alek Manoah and Michael Fulmer, who are not known now to be great pitchers, but before they turned 24, they were pretty good in terms of BWAR. Now, I'm not a big fan of BWAR, and it's not the only stat we can look at. We can also look at FWAR, which uses FIP to calculate a pitcher's value instead of ERA, which is used in the BWAR calculation. As we said before, FIP is based on more underlying numbers like strikeouts, walks, and home runs. FWAR is a lot better at predicting the future success of pitchers, as it takes most of the luck that pitchers deal with out of the equation. With that being said, let's look at the FWAR per innings pitched for these 10 pitchers. Fernandez has the highest rate amongst this group. Unsurprisingly, guys like Michael Fulmer and Alek Manoah had a much worse FWAR than BWAR, which means they might have been overperforming. Of course, this isn't a perfect rule, as John Lester and Chris Sale also followed a similar pattern but had great careers after they turned 24. It's pretty clear, though, that Jose stands out from these guys when it comes to FWAR. If we take a look at the top 10, he finishes in 2nd, only behind Spencer Strider, who we all know was pretty good when he first entered the league. Once again, most of these names went on and became some of the best pitchers since the turn of the century, further proving that Fernandez was on the right path. Jose Fernandez having these numbers is not at all surprising if you really knew how good he was. He struck out 31.2% of batters he faced in his career. For context, the only pitcher to have a higher rate than that in 2024 was Chris Sale, the NL Cy Young winner. He walked only 7.2% of batters he faced. This gives him a strikeout minus walk percent of 24. That number would be good for 4th in the league in 2024 amongst qualified starters, behind only Chris Sale, Tarik Skubal, the 2 Cy Young winners, and Sonny Gray. The most impressive feat for Fernandez, though, is he was doing all this while not giving up home runs. In his career, he gave up just 0.59 home runs per 9 innings, which, for context, is a better number than Logan Webb's career home runs per 9. Logan Webb is known for this, throwing sinkers and changeups, inducing ground balls, and keeping the ball in the park. Fernandez was a power strikeout guy, also preventing home runs at a better rate than Logan Webb. Ultimately, this is what made Jose so good. Some of the best strikeout stuff in the league, as good as Tarik Skubal, and had home run prevention as good as Logan Webb, and also had solid control of his pitches to go with it. In his final season in 2016, he really started to show just how good he could have been. Over 29 starts, he pitched 182 innings with a 2.86 ERA, 137 ERA+, a 2.3 FIP, and led the league with a 34% strikeout rate. He posted 6.3 FWAR, which was the highest mark in the entire league that season. As a comparison, Tarik Skubal was worth 5.9 FWAR this season when he won the Cy Young. And also a reminder that Jose Fernandez was still only 23 years old in 2016, putting up these kinds of numbers. In fact, Fernandez had a pretty strong argument that he was the best pitcher in the league in 2016. He had the highest strikeout rate in the league, and it wasn't really close. He put up a mark of 34.3%, and second place Max Scherzer had 31.5%. He was 2nd in the league in FIP, but 1st in all of MLB in both xFIP and SIERA. xFIP is very similar to FIP, except it adjusts the pitcher's home runs given up to be more representative to what was expected to happen. It uses the league-wide home run to fly ball rate to account for any unlucky homers that the pitcher may have given up. SIERA stands for Skill Interactive ERA. SIERA takes into account the type of batted ball that's put in play. It rewards pitchers for giving up ground balls and pop-ups, since those typically lead to better results than line drives and fly balls. Both of these metrics are a little more advanced, but are much better at representing how good a pitcher actually was, and Fernandez led the league in both. So these numbers say that Fernandez was really the best pitcher in 2016, at least on a per inning basis. Now, he wasn't going to win the Cy Young, as guys like Max Scherzer were a little bit worse on a per inning basis, but pitched 30 more innings than Fernandez did in 2016. If you teleport this season into 2024, which I know is kind of bad analysis, but just for the sake of comparison, I think he would beat out Tarik Skubal for the AL Cy Young. Now with that Tarik Skubal comparison, I want to go back and look at some more comparisons to other pitchers who started their careers similarly to Fernandez. This might give us more of an idea of what he could have turned into if we got to see his entire career play out. There are very few pitchers who had a start to a career like Fernandez did. Here are the short list of pitchers who struck out at least 500 batters and had an ERA below 3 for their first 76 career starts since 1980. Even if you extend the strikeout number down to 400, much less than what Fernandez had, there are still not many pitchers that have done that. Only 11 to be exact, and these are some pretty good names. Dwight Gooden, Tim Lincecum, Jacob deGrom, and Fernando Valenzuela, just to name a few. And besides Dwight Gooden, I think Fernandez might have had the best start out of all these pitchers. He's second in ERA, second in strikeouts, first in strikeout rate, just another piece of evidence that this guy was on pace to become one of the best pitchers in MLB history. Fernandez's brilliance on the mound wasn't just about individual accolades though, wasn't just about individual production, it was also about the foundation of hope for a franchise desperately in need of a resurgence. The Marlins, as you might know, have not been the best at filling up the win column recently. In 2016, though, it looked like that was about to change. They'd built up a solid young core that consisted of 24-year-old Christian Yelich, 25-year-old Marcell Ozuna, 26-year-old Giancarlo Stanton, 25-year-old JT Realmuto, and of course the pitching staff was led by 23-year-old Jose Fernandez. This team won 79 games that year, the most they had won since they won 80 games in 2010. The future was looking extremely bright in Miami. As we know though, this young core would not accomplish much in the next few years. They won 77 games in 2017, 63 games in 2018, and just 57 games in 2019. I don't think it's much of a coincidence that the death of Jose Fernandez and the downfall of this team happened at the same time. Not long after this promising 2016 season, this young core would get blown up in a series of, in hindsight, awful trades by the Marlins, trading Yelich to the Brewers in exchange for a prospect package headlined by Lewis Brinson, trading Giancarlo Stanton to the Yankees for Starlin Castro, Jorge Guzman, and Jose Devers, trading JT Realmuto to the Phillies for Jorge Alfaro and Sixto Sanchez. The one trade that was somewhat successful was trading Marcell Ozuna to the Cardinals for a package that included Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen. They traded Gallen shortly after for Jazz Chisholm from the Arizona Diamondbacks. That one trade, though, is not enough to make up for the rest. This core is often involved with a lot of what-if questioning. What if the Marlins kept this core together? Just like the mystery of the rest of Jose Fernandez's career, it's something that we will never know. To sum it all up, Jose Fernandez's career was tragically brief but undeniably brilliant. Much more brilliant than what his legacy currently stands at. The numbers that he put up are rarely seen from a pitcher of that age, and it still stands as one of the best starts to a pitcher's career ever, especially when we look at some of the more advanced metrics that are more representative of a pitcher's true value. Of course, he's held back by his already short career, shortened even more by a Tommy John surgery. From what we saw though, it looked like he was on pace to become one of the best of all time, and that's not even an exaggeration. Unfortunately though, we'll never know the true answer to this question, but for now, I think we need to understand that this guy was a lot better than we remember. Thank you for watching, make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.